Missiles are in the air right now. Drones are hitting targets across 3 different countries at the same time. And in the middle of all this, one question is louder than anything else. Is Trump finally going to hit Iran the way this attack deserves? Explosions are lighting up the sky over Iraq right now. A missile trail is cutting through the clouds over the Gulf. And somewhere near the Strait of Hormuz, another ship is being warned to turn back or get hit. This is not a small skirmish. This is Iran throwing everything it has at the same time. And it is happening as you watch this video. Let's walk through what we know so far. And I want to be honest with you, some of this is still coming in, so we will separate what is confirmed from what is still being checked. Early reports say Iran launched a wave of ballistic missiles from an underground base in the center of the country. These missiles were aimed at air bases that host American troops in the Gulf region. Multiple people on the ground reported hearing loud launch sounds within minutes of each other, which tells us this was not one missile. It was a coordinated wave. At the same time, drone footage started coming in from northern Iraq, showing a direct hit on a position close to American and Allied forces. This is not a random drone flying off course. This looks like a planned strike, timed to land right around the same window as the missile launches. When you see missiles and drones hitting at the same time, that is not an accident, that is a message. Then came the reports from the Gulf countries. One ally said hostile drones entered their airspace and were shot down before causing serious damage. Another report claims a tanker was stopped in the Strait of Hormuz, with Iran saying the ship was moving without their permission. Now here is where we have to be careful. Iran has made big claims before that turned out to be false or exaggerated. So while we take this seriously, we are not going to repeat every claim as fact. We are going to tell you what is confirmed, what is disputed, and what we still do not know. What we do know for certain is this. In the last few hours, Iran hit multiple targets across at least 3 different countries. That includes a NATO-linked airbase, a Gulf allies territory, and international shipping lanes that the entire world depends on for oil. This is not a local fight anymore. This is an attack that touches the global economy, American troops, and American allies all at once. And here is the part that should worry everyone watching. The United States had actually paused its strikes the night before this happened. No bombing runs, no new attacks. It looked like there might be a small window for things to calm down. Instead, Iran used that quiet night to plan and launch this exact attack. That is not the move of a country looking for peace. That is the move of a country testing how far it can push before something snaps. So the question everyone is asking right now is simple. After a pause that Iran clearly did not respect, does the United States go back to hitting hard, or does it try one more time to talk this down? Because right now, every missile in the air is answering that question for us, and the answer does not look like peace. It looks like Iran betting that America will not respond the way this attack demands. In the next section, we are going to break down exactly how Iran managed to pull off an attack this big, what weapons they used, and why their ability to hide these launchers is a bigger problem than most people realize. Picture a regular shipping container sitting on the back of a truck. Nothing about it looks dangerous. It looks like it is carrying furniture or food or clothes. Then the top of that container opens, and a missile shoots straight up into the sky. That is not a movie scene. That is exactly how Iran is launching a lot of these attacks, and it is one of the biggest reasons this war has been so hard to slow down. For months, a lot of people have been asking the same question. How does Iran still have the ability to launch missile after missile, when the United States and Israel have already destroyed so many of their military sites? The answer is simple once you see it. Iran is not keeping most of its missiles in big, obvious military bases anymore. They are hiding them in plain sight, inside regular-looking shipping containers and trucks that blend in with everyday traffic. This makes them incredibly hard to find, and even harder to destroy before they fire. The missile behind a lot of this recent activity is a short-range weapon that Iran only introduced a few years ago. It is small enough to move around easily, guided closely enough to hit specific targets, and cheap enough that Iran can build a lot of them without draining its entire budget. This is not Iran's most powerful weapon, but it does not need to be. The goal is not to win one giant battle. The goal is to keep firing, keep the pressure on, and keep proving they can still hit back no matter how many strikes they take. By some outside estimates, Iran may still have well over 1,000 ballistic missiles left in its arsenal, even after everything that has already been destroyed. That number matters, because it tells you this is not a country running out of options. This is a country that can keep this kind of attack going for a long time if nothing changes. Now, let's talk about what Iran is actually claiming happened during this attack. Because there's a big difference between what Iran says on state media and what the United States military is confirming. Iran claimed it shut down the Strait of Hormuz completely, saying any ship that wants to pass through now needs their permission first. The United States pushed back hard on that, saying the strait is still open and ships are moving through with military protection. Iran also claimed it destroyed several fighter jets during recent strikes. Again, the United States said that simply did not happen and that no aircraft were lost. This pattern is important to notice. Iran tends to announce big, dramatic claims very quickly, often before there is any way to check if they are true. Sometimes those claims turn out to have some truth to them. Often they are stretched far beyond what actually happened. So when you hear Iran say something huge happened, the smart move is to wait for confirmation from the other side before treating it as fact. At the same time, it would also be a mistake to brush off everything Iran is doing as empty talk. The drone and missile attacks that hit multiple countries were real, the footage is real, and the damage in some locations has already been confirmed. So the honest picture here is a mix of both things at once. Iran is exaggerating some of its claims for propaganda purposes, while also carrying out real, coordinated attacks that are doing actual damage on the ground. This combination is exactly what makes this moment so dangerous. A country that hides its weapons well, still has a large stockpile left, and is willing to mix real attacks with exaggerated claims is very hard to predict. It also makes it much harder for the United States to know exactly how to respond in a way that actually solves the problem instead of just reacting to the last attack. In the next section, we are going to get into the real debate happening right now. Should the United States finally hit back with full force, or is there still a case for holding back and trying one more diplomatic path before this gets even bigger? There's an old rule in war that most people never think about until it is too late. If you hit someone hard enough to make them stop, they stop. If you hit them just hard enough to make them angry, they hit back harder next time. Right now, a lot of military voices are asking whether the United States has been making that second mistake with Iran, over and over again. Let's look at the pattern honestly. Every time there has been a major strike on Iran, there has usually been a pause afterward. Sometimes that pause comes from a ceasefire talk. Sometimes it just comes from a quiet night with no bombing. And almost every single time, Iran has used that pause not to consider peace, but to reload, regroup, and hit back within days. This is not a one-time pattern. This has happened again and again throughout this conflict. And each time, the attacks that follow tend to be just as big, if not bigger, than what came before. This is exactly why a growing number of military voices are now pushing for something different. Instead of another limited strike followed by another pause, they want a full, decisive response. Not a message strike, not a warning shot. A response big enough that Iran cannot simply rebuild and come back swinging in a week. Here is what that kind of response would actually look like on the ground. It starts with clearing the sky. Before anything else can happen, stealth aircraft and jamming planes need to go in first to shut down Iran's radar and air defense systems. Without that first step, every plane that follows is flying into danger. Once the sky is clear, next come the aircraft built to find and destroy specific targets. Things like missile storage sites, command centers, and the exact shipping routes being used to hide launchers. Only after that groundwork is done do the heaviest bombers come in, the ones capable of hitting the most protected targets Iran has left. This is not random bombing. This is a sequence where each step makes the next step possible. But here is where we have to be fair and look at the other side of this too. A response this large is not without serious risk. Iran still has a large network of allied fighters spread across the region, in Iraq, in Yemen, in Lebanon. A major American strike could trigger a much wider response from these groups, pulling even more countries and more American troops into direct danger. There's also the risk of civilian casualties, which could turn public opinion against the operation, both at home and internationally. And there is the economic risk too, since a bigger conflict in this region almost always sends oil prices climbing, hitting regular people's wallets far from the battlefield. This is why some officials are still pushing for one more diplomatic attempt before going all in militarily. Their argument is simple. Talks have failed before, but so has bombing alone. If neither approach has stopped Iran permanently, then maybe the answer is not choosing one over the other, but finding a way to combine real diplomatic pressure with a strong enough military threat that Iran actually believes at this time. So this is the real fork in the road right now. One path is a full, heavy military response designed to make sure Iran cannot simply recover and strike again in a week. The other path is one final diplomatic push, backed by the threat of that same heavy response if talks fail again. Both paths come with real risk. Both paths come with a real cost if they fail. What almost nobody believes anymore is that doing nothing, or repeating another small symbolic strike, is going to change anything. The pattern has already shown that path leads right back to another attack. In the next section, we are going to zoom out and look at how this decision affects the entire region, from oil markets to America's allies, and what the most likely outcome actually looks like from here. Zoom out for a second, because this fight is no longer just about Iran and the United States. It is about oil tankers moving through one narrow strip of water that the entire world depends on, allies who are now directly in the blast zone, and a domino effect that could pull in countries who never wanted to be part of this war in the first place. Start with the Gulf allies. Countries like Bahrain, the UAE, and Kuwait are hosting American bases, which means they are now sitting directly in the path of Iranian missiles and drones, whether they want to be or not. Every time Iran launches an attack aimed at American forces, these countries take the risk right along with them. That puts real pressure on their governments to either back the American response fully or start quietly asking Washington to slow things down before their own cities pay the price. Then there's the Strait of Hormuz, and this is the part that touches almost everyone watching this video, even if you have never thought about it before. A huge share of the world's oil moves through that narrow strip of water every single day. When Iran threatens ships in that strait or claims it is closed, oil markets react almost instantly. That means gas prices, shipping costs, and even the price of everyday goods can shift because of what happens in this one stretch of water. This is not just a regional military story. It is a story that reaches into pockets all over the world. Now bring in the wider map. Iran does not fight alone. It has allied groups scattered across the region, in Yemen, in Iraq, and elsewhere, that can open up entirely new fronts if the main conflict escalates. At the same time, other global powers are watching closely. Some offering quiet support to Iran, others simply watching to see how far the United States is willing to go. Every strike, every pause, every diplomatic attempt is being studied by more than just the two main countries involved. So where does this actually go from here? Based on everything happening right now, there are really three realistic paths. The first path is full escalation. The United States hits back with the heavy, decisive response we talked about earlier, aiming to cripple Iran's ability to keep launching these attacks for good. This path carries the highest risk of a wider regional war, but it also carries the best chance of actually ending the cycle of attack. Pause and attack again. The second path is more of the same. Another limited strike, another short pause, and another Iranian attack a few days or weeks later. This is the path we have already seen play out multiple times, and at this point, almost nobody believes it leads anywhere new. The third path is a real diplomatic breakthrough, backed by the credible threat of that same heavy military response if talks collapse again. This is the hardest path to pull off, because it requires both sides to actually want a way out, not just a pause to reload. But if it works, it is also the only path that avoids a much bigger regional war. Right now, all three of these paths are still technically on the table, and the next few days are likely to tell us which one the United States is actually choosing. Every move, every statement from officials, every new strike or new attempt at talks is a signal pointing toward one of these three directions. So here's the question I want you to sit with. After everything Iran just did, after using a quiet night to plan and launch this exact attack, do you think Trump should go all in with a full, heavy response? Or is there still room for one more diplomatic push before this turns into something even bigger? Let me know what you think in the comments, because this is exactly the kind of decision that is going to shape what happens next in this region. The story is still moving fast, and there's a lot more developing behind the scenes that we are going to be watching closely. Make sure you stay tuned, because the next update on this could come sooner than anyone expects.